Race 2B of the BRSCC Mazda Championship. We've got Will Hayden behind me here, who's normally in the A races, however, seems to be down here in the Bs. Will, what seems to be going wrong?
The engine just isn't getting any power, unfortunately, so I'm just powering through. Hopefully can get a podium this race, but yeah, just going to have to deal with what I've got at the moment, and then at the end of this weekend we'll get it all fixed and ready for Donington.
So you're hoping to have the widest MX-5 in the championship?
Hopefully, yeah. We'll have to wait and see if it's going to go, but yeah, definitely.
Well, best of luck.
Cheers,
have a good one. Andy, over to you to see how this turns out for him.
Thanks, Mike. Well, drizzly conditions then for our final race of the day. Clive Chisnall on pole position alongside Bryn Griffiths, then Alan Hawkins and Adrian Burge, with Ollie Jenkins, the other driver, relegated from the A race. Richard Wotton is next ahead of Dave Turton and Tim Dorr. They've had entertaining days. So too has Nick Ledoyen with Ivan Leary down in 10th. Then it's Graham Rumsey and Tom Jenkins, Pete Lancaster and Christopher Ginn, with Ashley Heath and Sam Jarvis next. Then Chris Malloy and Jonathan Fieldsend, with Richard Bartlett and Elliot Hann to round out the top 20. Dale Whiteman and Neil Coggan, Jack Wilmot and Ian Whitewicker next. And then towards the back of the grid, we have got Thomas Jenkins all on his own on the last row. So here we go, then we've had some fantastic Mazda MX-5 racing this weekend from both the A and the B grids. This final race though, we do have a little bit of drizzle in the air. The track is greasy, not fully wet. All of the cars, of course, running on grooved Avon tyres though, so they won't have to worry about tyre changes. Just a bit of a slimy surface. Away we go then for the final 20-minute race of the weekend. Who gets into Old Hall Corner first? Let's find out. It's going to be pretty even run. Chisnall, I think, might be Bryn Griffiths or even Alan Hawkins. Alan Hawkins comes storming through the order, and he will be challenging for the lead as they went round the first turn. Lots of cars running wide on the grass out of Old Hall, but all of them will slither their way back on the road with varying degrees of speed. But at the front it is Hawkins that leads, Chisnall second, Griffiths third and Wotton fourth, so a real change around in the order. Ivan Leary there appears to have dropped down the order from what was already a reasonably lowly 10th on the grid. Speaking of 10, that's the number 10 car of Tom Mallett, the orange car going around the outside of number 53, Jonathan Fieldsend. Hawkins, though, has got Clive Chisnall all over him through Island Bend as they slide their way to the top part of the circuit. Chisnall going for the lead, but then finds himself having to defend his second place from Bryn Griffiths, who goes right round the outside. Now, in the full wet conditions, that is the grippier side of the road, but it's not fully wet yet. It's wet enough, though, with Hawkins getting sideways there, and they're all going to be right on top of each other now as they head into the Britain chicane for the first time. This is going to be a very busy run through the tightest and narrowest part of the circuit. On board with Chris Malloy here at the inside of Jonathan Fieldsend. Goes through, then gets himself alongside Tom Mallett into the right-hander. Oh, there's a hefty whack between the two of them. Looks over, selects a gear, on he goes. So no real damage done, but that was interesting. Now, lock up there for Bryn Griffiths. I did sort of suspect we might have a bit of contact on the engine lap. They're not intentional, just because it's so treacherous out there. And they're all slithering around. Tim Dorr gets sideways, saves it. Oh, gets rear-ended by Graham Rumsey, though. And unfortunately, Adrian Burge has to slam on the brakes to avoid getting involved in that, and then spins, and round he goes. And was that Nick Ledoyen? I think they had to take to the grass to avoid him. And Adrian Burge, well, that was an eventful couple of corners, wasn't it? Nearly gained a place, then had to back out of it, and then spun, and nearly was collected by another car coming off the turn. So, well, very, very lively start to the race, but we, as I said, sort of expected that with these slightly greasy conditions now. Because it's not fully wet, the grip levels aren't consistent yet, and finding the quickest line is not going to be easy. Alan Hawkins, though, looks like he's going to lead the first lap from Clive Chisnall second, and third place for Dave Turton. So Dave Turton, who's been knocking on the door of a good result all day, really, after that non-finish in the first B race. He's had to really work hard to get himself back to the pointy end of the grid. Covered to 7th in race 2, and now he's running in 3rd in the early stages of this one. Griffiths is 4th, then Woodham and Jenkins, that looks like, is it? Yeah, number 57, Tim Dorr on the inside of him, with the damage to the back of Dorr's car after that headbutt that he got from Graham Rumsey, excuse me. Ivan Leary on the grass, not the first time we've seen that this weekend. A few of them then sporting wounds after their early exchanges. And let's hope that we can have less of the contact now. Here comes Dave Turton, though, with a mega run. He's into second place up the inside of Clive Chisnall. And I think briefly considered going up the inside of Alan Hawkins there, but he does slot in line between the two of them. So Dave Turton, whatever he's done to the car between races, it's clearly worked, or maybe he's just a bit more comfortable in the wet conditions. About the outside again, as I was starting to make the point before, the outside line in theory in the wet is the quicker way through, but only when it's fully wet. When it's damp and greasy, it's really not very grippy anywhere, so you may as well stick to the racing line. Tim Dorr there with that damaged rear bumper, but it's not really slowing him down particularly. Bashes the car over the curbs again. They do withstand a lot of punishment, these MX-5s, for cars that are not in the first flush of youth anymore, but they're lovingly prepared by their teams and drivers. Many of those, that's the same thing as well. Many of these cars run by the drivers themselves as a real great entry-level way of getting into motorsport. Works particularly well. That's why we've got these massive grids of cars, and many of them, particularly in these B races, as you can see, sporting those novice crosses because they're relative newcomers. For many of them, this will be their first taste of motor racing action this season. So Hawkins leads the way then. Turton second, Chisnall third, then Wootton and Griffiths round out the top five with Jenkins and Tim Dorr. And Tim Dorr was looking up the inside of Jenkins there as they went into Druids. Did that work? Not quite. In fact, sorry, yes, it did, excuse me. Yes, it is Jenkins who comes through in front. No, so yes, so yeah, Jenkins was in front anyway, so Tim Dorr stays behind him. Windscreen wipers on for most of the cars. There's no spray and it's not heavy rain, it's just enough to make things tricky. Alan Hawkins actually the race leader, and Dave Turton's windscreen wipers are on intermittently, I think, like the race leaders were. Everyone else carving their way through. There is Elliot Han under pressure and about to lose a place, I think, to car number 21, Matt Fletcher. Let's move there into Old Hall corner. Matthew Fletcher we're on board with now, looking back at the number 14 car of Elliot Han, who's trying to fight back down the avenue. Oh, there's a car off there, though. Car off to the right-hand side of the screen. Now, that was a white car. There weren't many white cars in the first half of the field. One of the few that were there was Ollie Jenkins. So, is Oliver Jenkins being off the road, I wonder? Well, let's wait and see. Meanwhile, this side-by-side battle continuing down to Island Bend. Up the inside goes, was that Thomas Jenkins going through? I think it might have been. Both Jenkins in this race, remember. Ollie in the 57, Thomas in the 56, and now 52. Jack Wilmot tries to go around the outside. His second race didn't end perfectly with that off he had. He finished the race, but one lap down in last place. Han, the big loser in that little shuffle, really, losing a few positions in half a lap or so. Out of Britain's then over the hill, and the race lead battle is starting to intensify now as Dave Turton is applying the pressure to the race leader Alan Hawkins. A few cars continuing to lock up. I think that might have been the Sam Jarvis car possibly that was locking up into the chicane there. Back up the hill again for another time. Everyone just really trying to survive now, rather than trying to find every overtaking opportunity, particularly. The conditions so changeable, those opportunities can come at any moment, so you've got to be on your toes, ready to react to what the cars around you are doing. Jonathan Fields then, who survived that contact he had on the opening lap with Sam Jarvis. Relatively unscathed, it would appear. Bodywork damage, no doubt, nothing it's going to affect his performance particularly. Maybe just in front of him. Right, there are the leaders then, Hawkins and Turton, then Chisnall and Wootton, then pairing off the front. Graham Rumsey there goes for a nice move at the inside of Bryn Griffiths. Makes it stick and nearly had a go at Tim Dorr as well, actually. So Griffiths, unfortunately, slipping down the field now. Was one of the leading Masters drivers. Alan Hawkins, though, is the leading Masters driver in this race. Position he'll be hoping to hold to the flag, if nothing else, through the left-hander Cascades. But remember, though, even if you win a B race, you only score the points for about 26th place finish, but that doesn't really bother Dave Turton. He wants the win anyway, and he's got the lead now away from Alan Hawkins. So Dave Turton to the front. That sort of had a sense of inevitability about it. He's been looking really quick in these conditions. He had decent pace in the dry, but in the wet, he's looking like one of the strongest drivers out there, and he is now in the position that would suggest that. He's in the lead of the race. There goes Nick Ledoyen through in 8th position. He's now trying to get onto terms with the Graham Rumsey and Bryn Griffiths squabble. But there is Dave Turton then, your new race leader. Down the hill, Hawkins second, Chisnall and Wootton second and third. Richard Wootton always seems to be on the verge of promotion spots, doesn't he, in the B races, and he always seems to come home about 6th or 7th and just miss out. And I'm sure he's getting rather frustrated with that now. He's rarely out of the top 10, is Richard, but equally rarely is in the top 5. He runs in the top 5 quite frequently. And I think he's had a couple of top 5s in race 3s over the year, but of course that does him no good at all because there's no promotion after race 3 because there isn't a race 4. So he's running 4th at the moment. Tim Dorr looking to try and get up the inside into Druids, but to no avail. Barely a straight body panel on that 37 car of Tim Dorr at the moment. Looks brightening up a little bit maybe, so I'm not convinced it's raining too heavily right now. Lap times are starting to improve as well, which would suggest that that is the case. Suggesting that maybe Richard Wootton ought to move out of his way here because he's a bit quicker, but you have to work for every overtake in this championship, be it for first place or 21st place. Battle for first place, though, is rather entertaining. Look at Alan Hawkins reading down the neck now, well and truly, on Dave Turton. So Turton, having got the lead, is not escaping remotely. Looking out there as they run wide and slide over the grass creek there, but there are pressure pad sensors there that when you run over them, they take a picture of your car and that gets sent straight to race control. And that way, if you exceed the track limit, which is what you're doing if you're setting that sensor off, because you should be nowhere near it, there's no real way of arguing the case then with the clerk of the course, because there is photographic evidence of your discretion. This is one of the features, particularly of these Motorsport Vision run circuits these days. Still a bit of drizzle in the air there, you can see from the onboard camera with the 3rd place man, Clive Chisnall. He's back. Top 2 though, starting to get away now, and if anything, it's getting congested behind Clive now for 3rd position. Down to the chicane they go. Onto the brakes, and Alan Hawkins certainly not being dropped here by Dave Turton. But this is sort of what I hinted at before. The race leader has a really difficult job because they are the first to discover the slippery part of the track. So as soon as you're in front, you have no idea how quickly you can attack the next corner. And coming into a corner like Druids, for example, that's not ideal. You want to know that you've got full confidence in the car there, but you can't have full confidence as the leader because for all you know, it could have absolutely poured it down at that corner since you were last there a couple of minutes ago. So Alan Hawkins can sort of read the situation. If he sees Turton sliding around, he knows he needs to back off. If he sees Turton's car handling well, then he knows that his car will probably handle well. And he can just brake as late as Turton does and carry as much speed through the corner as he does as well. As a result, they're staying nose to tail. Chisnall still 3rd, Wootton 4th. Tim Dorr, Bryn Griffiths, Graham Rumsey, Nick McDoyan. That's that little group of 6 cars there coming through. 4 and then 2, I suppose. Just a little bit detached. Leading this next group, I think, is Matt Fletcher there. Yeah, he's the 21 car. Here, there's Adrian Bird recovering as well. His spin early on. He's overtaken quite a lot of cars already, actually, as Adrian. He's possibly going to be able to creep into the top 10 at this rate. He's about 13th or so now, I think. Downhill again. So this is Thomas Jenkins now, who is trying to find a way past Jonathan Field's end. And then next, then pitch the car in as fast as you can. The brakes, and Field's End having a look at the inside there of number 78 Richard Bartlett, one of the Masters drivers, in fact both of these drivers in the Masters category. So over the curb, look at the curb taken by Bartlett there. Even the drivers towards the back of the field are attacking the circuit as if their life depends on it, and that's the great thing, isn't it? You can be, even if you're not fighting at the front, you're still enjoying it. You're still getting something out of your racing experience. Oh, Field End about to try and get a place here from Bartlett. He's up the inside. It's a bit of a clumsy block pass, but it works. It's a nice overtake, that. So he's... they don't always have to be pretty, as long as you get the job done and there's no contact, which is true of that move. And it's a move well made in my book. Now allowed, I think that's Elliot Han to, well, it's one of the 2 yellow cars, isn't it? It's either Elliot Han or Sam Jarvis that's caught them. It's Sam Jarvis, I think number 11. So This is now a four-way fight, but with Fields End at the front of it now. In that 53 car, one of the more distinctive liveries out there. Immediately moves over to defend out of Druid's corner there. Felt that he was going to be under pressure at Lodge, which indeed he is. They are a little close for comfort behind him. Into the position though, doesn't run wide out of Lodge. Good stuff. Over Deer Leap again. Back across the start-finish line. Adrian Burge there making a move on Ivan Leary. So that's another place game now. And Ivan Leary's day has started to unravel really. He missed out, remember, on promotion in race 1 by just one position. He was 6th in race 1, and then 10th in race 2, and he looks like he's going to finish possibly outside the top 10 now in race 3. So for Ivan, the Oulton Park Circuit not treating him too well. Not had any problems as such, just a mysterious lack of pace really. And Ivan, we've seen on occasion qualifying in the A grids this year as well, so it's not been ideal. There's Nick Doyen still stuck behind Graham Rumsey as they come out of Shell. There is the number 21 car of Matthew Fletcher. Just see the MX-5 pouring out of Shell. The rain seems to have abated more or less now. The lap times are definitely improving, so it doesn't look as though it's too slippery right now. The drivers, I'm sure, will be exceptionally happy about, because Oulton Park is a treacherous enough circuit as it is. Very easy to make a mistake and costly usually if you do. So they'll be glad that at least it is a dry-ish circuit that they're dealing with now. Always the threat of rain though. It's fairly overcast still, so it could come back. There's Thomas Jenkins turning through. Behind him, Richard Bartlett. So that's been a change, I think, because Bartlett was at the head of this group, I seem to remember, a lap ago. Or at least in front of the other red car of Jenkins, who now sets off after Fields End. So blue car under pressure immediately, and Jenkins to the outside into Druids. Is he going to be able to make that step? We'll check back in with them in a moment. Meanwhile, the race leaders are back across the start-finish line and now into the final third of the race. And Dave Turton still with Alan Hawkins breathing down his neck, so Hawkins not letting him be. Clive Chisnell's third, and into fourth now is Tim Dorr, with 5th place being held by, I didn't quite spot who was in 5th place, but we're hearing actually that the 3rd place man, Clive Chisnell, is under investigation for a jump start. So this is the man who is under investigation. That's usually fairly damning. I don't recall seeing many people investigated for jumping the start that didn't jump the start, so we'll see whether or not he catches a penalty for that. But if he does, it could take him out of a, well, it would take him out of a podium place at this rate. So Clive will be hoping against hope that doesn't happen. Out of Shell he goes then, for the time being 3rd on the road. Keep an eye to the timing screen. He's actually catching the top 2 here, so this will be particularly disappointing if he does lose this podium. Back over Hilltop, he's really reeled in Alan Hawkins. I think Alan's had a bad run through the middle sector there, because the gap between the top 2 has gone out now to nearly a second. Second to third, there's only a car length or so as they drop down the hill again into his lops. 7.22, Alan Hawkins then. That is, I think, possibly my favourite livery on the grid. I love that jigsaw pattern that it's got. And again, nice, distinctive, unique pattern on the car. And Alan Hawkins looking for another podium result here, if he can get one. Had a 4th in race 1, which promoted him to the A grid. Unfortunately, wasn't able to stay there, but he's back racing for a victory again here, in 2nd place at the moment. Beneath Paul Warwick Bridge, down into Lodge Corner. Hard onto the brakes. Tim Dorr in 4th place, not a million miles behind them. They're both sort of catching Turton again on this lap now. Hawkins has got a tow, and he's bringing with him Clive Chisnell. Across the line then. Another lap begins, at least 2 more to go, because there's no sign of the last lap board. Scratch their way through Old Hall Corner. Oh, and Alan Hawkins very out of shape over the grass there as he left Old Hall Corner. The grass a bit damp now after that drizzle, and therefore yielding not very much grip, and Clive Chisnell is all over him now. Couldn't quite get alongside though. Into Cascades, runs down the lakeside straight again. In the slipstream, down to quick left-hander. Staying same gear all the way down to Island Bend, and Clive might be tempted to have a go here. Surely Hawkins will cover the inside. Well, he sort of does, but there is a gap and Chisnall goes for it. Oh, lovely move from Clive Chisnall. That is how you overtake cleanly at Shell. It still requires a bit of help from the car you're overtaking. If they turn in, then there will be an accident at that point, but thankfully Hawkins saw him coming. I think he knew he was vulnerable there, and Chisnall's through. So again, a great example of how quick things can change. A lap ago we were saying that Hawkins was looking a bit more threatening to turn, but then that one moment at Old Hall meant that he was on the back foot. He's fighting back again now though, back alongside Chisnall over Hilltop. And Clive has the inside line, but Hawkins is later on the brakes, and as long as he stops the car, which he just about manages, he will hold or retake second place once again. This is certainly playing into Turton's hands though. He's getting away now. Tim Dorr on the tail of Chisnall, fourth position. Great racing here then between all three of them, but Dave Turton might now be clear in front, because I reckon he's broken the toe now. I don't think that Alan Hawkins will have much of a slipstream, and that makes it a lot harder because the slipstream's worth so much time. So often if you're only maybe 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap quicker than someone, it's hard to pull away from them because the slipstream's worth about 2 or 3 tenths minimum. So especially on a high-speed circuit like this one. Oh, Hawkins is sideways again though. That'll help Turton. It'll also help Chisnall get alongside him and maybe have a go into Old Hall Corner, and I wouldn't bet against Tim Dorr getting a run on the pair of them here. Last lap board goes out, the last lap of racing today here at Oulton Park. Dave Turton looking good for the race victory, but 3 cars debating second place. These podium places. Out of Old Hall, and Hawkins again, he's wide, so too Tim Dorr. They're throwing caution to the wind now on the final lap. Chisnall's alongside, and he's going to go through. Yes, he's into second place, and can Tim Dorr go through as well? He's late on the brakes up the inside into Cascades, but Hawkins is going to turn in. No, leaves him room, and I don't think he had to there. I think Tim Dorr had actually backed out of the manoeuvre, but Hawkins didn't want to take the risk, and so left him space, and has lost 2 places now. So Chisnall goes through into second. Can he go after Dave Turton, I wonder? He's been released into clean air. He's got just over half a lap to do it. Surely he won't be able to catch the leader, but you never know. And also, what can Tim Dorr do about Chisnall? Because Chisnall is not far in front of him. There you can see the two of them together. I think Hawkins is a bit demoralised now after all of that. He's thinking a couple of laps ago, I was in the pound seat. I had a good chance to get the race lead away. I was looking a bit quicker than Dave Turton. I had a good slipstream, and now all of a sudden I'm 4th. It's MX-5 racing for you though. Never ever can you rest on your laurels, and never can you relax. If you make a mistake, there will always be at least one driver on your rear bumper waiting to capitalise, and on this occasion more than one. So down the hill then, Chisnall into second, still with this jump start penalty looming potentially. It's under investigation at the moment. Then Tim Dorr in third, who could therefore be set to inherit second if things finish as they are, if he's even aware of this potential penalty. Hawkins 4th, therefore, might yet end up on the podium, but we'll wait for confirmation after the race. Into Druids, through the right-hander. Double apex right-hander that. Very quick corner, over the hill. Don't think anything's going to change now, unless Hawkins can have a go at Tim Dorr maybe for third, but it looks as though Dave Turton finally, after a day that's progressively got better as it's gone on, is going to get about as good as it can do, really. A race victory here in race 3B for Dave Turton, who comes over the start-finish line in a moment or two and sees the checkered flag. Victory for Turton, second for Chisnall, side by side for third between Dorr and Hawkins, and Tim Dorr hangs on by 68 1/1000ths of a second. However, we believe that there is a 10-second penalty for our second place man on the road, Clive Chisnall, and that will drop him right down the order, because the next group of cars, led by Bryn Griffiths, were not that far behind. Here's confirmation of the result then. Turton with the victory, Dorr in second, Hawkins third, and then Griffiths, Wootton, Rumsey and Ledoyen all leapfrog the Chisnall car with that 10-second penalty. He ends up 8th with Chris Malloy 9th, and Adrian Burge recovering to the top 10. That was a good drive. Tom Mallett and Ashley Heath were next, over Elliot Han, Ivan Leary and Richard Bartlett. Clive Chisnall could salvage something from that race. He got the fastest lap. Ian Whitewick was a non-starter, whilst Thomas Jenkins was disqualified for a driving standards infringement.
So that more than makes up for a bad start to the weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, so in qualifying my suspension broke on lap 1. So I started from the back of the B in the first race, made my way up to the front, had a little crash and a puncture, started again from the back in the second B, got up to 7th, and then that race went from 7th to 1st, having a great race with these guys. And yeah, it's my first win in Mazda, so really happy with that.
Well, congratulations. Most people would call that showing off though.
Well, I hope in the future it might be an A race victory. So yeah, we'll take that, and that was really fun. Oulton Park's my new favourite track.
I can see why. Are you joining us for Donington Park?
Yeah, I do Donington and Silverstone. Yeah, looking forward to carrying on the winning streak.
Yeah. Excellent. We'll hope to see you in the 8th for Donington Park.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll see you there.
That was a bit of a interchanging. No, wrong. What interchanging? What's the word for the weather? It was
Changeable.
Changeable. Yeah, I'll do. So the weather was quite changeable. That would have made the race quite interesting. How was that for you?
Yeah, it made it very difficult in the first few laps, but after about 4 or 5 laps, it did settle down and went back to normal. But yeah, there was quite a bit of sliding around in the first few laps. But you know, I managed to keep it going. But unfortunately, I lost my pole position straight from the start. Spun the tyres up, and that was it really. So it was then a bit of a fight back. So I think I have to be pleased with second place really.
So you started in the A's. This seems to be a bit of a recovery drive, but it seems to have gone quite well for you.
Well, this one's been good. Yep, made my weekend hard for myself. Went backwards in the first A race, further backwards in the second B race, climbed back up for this one. Good race, a good one.
Good. So you're setting a bit of a precedent for yourself. Hopefully not.
No, we'll try and stay away from the earlier mistakes and keep it a bit more consistent in future.
Excellent. Will you be joining us at Donington?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, you'll be back up in the A's then, I hope.
Indeed. Hopefully 3 of them this time.